One Piece is a story filled with characters of all different shapes, sizes, colors, races, you name it. And pretty much everything you can think of makes an appearance of some sort. However, despite thousands of unique characters with typically very unique designs themselves and looks that they bring to the story, there is something that remains missing from this cast of characters. Something that you would seem to think would be commonplace in a story centered around pirates. Anyone with an eye patch.
Yeah, and even with one of the central characters of the Straw Hat crew, their vice captain missing one of his eyes ever since the time skip in Zoro, there's absolutely no sign of anyone donning an eye patch anywhere in the series, at least that's canon. We do have Rokai, the antagonist of the 2001 One Piece game Set Sail Pirate Crew, released for the Sony PlayStation, but that was non-canon and it was created very early on in the story. And since then, there's been no sign of an eye patch anywhere else.
And it's not as though author Ichiro Oda has forgotten about what an eye patch would be. It just seems as though he's made sure that he's worked around it on purpose. Ever since Rokai, which was very early on, like you said, he's avoided using the look on any character sense. And according to Oda himself, in the One Para leaflets that they released to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the series, all the way back in 2007, he has made it a mission of sorts to avoid using this trope in the series. In his own words, he states, "So, you haven't noticed yet? Well, you probably haven't. That in One Piece, there have not been a single pirate with an eye patch." He later goes on to describe that it has been a sort of behind-the-scenes policy, that it's not as though every pirate is bound to have an eye patch anyways, which is true.
Yeah, and in a sense, while this may seem kind of like a silly challenge that Oda's given to himself to push him into making more visually unique and outstanding characters in the story, it's also fair to consider that it's very fitting for the morally gray characters that we encounter throughout the series and every faction we meet, that we have to figure it out. It's not something that is just shown within their display. There are Marines that look terrifying, but actually have a heart of gold, and then there are those with much more normal demeanors that actually have a darker side to them.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at T-Bone, for example. The guy looked ghastly, but he literally gave, the cape off his back to help people in the story. But the concept of judging a book by its cover, I mean, it's overused in a lot of senses, but in this vein in particular, of Oda refusing to have his characters fall into a particular stereotype, does also feel like it allows for a lot more character diversity and complexity across this cast of characters. There are people that look normal that are really dark and messed up, and there are people that look horrifying that are just sweethearts. So it's something that also feels like it's added to the world in a way. It doesn't feel like it's actually held it back in any regard, that he's avoided using the eye patch.
This is true. However, it also doesn't mean that we'll never have a character in the series that appears wearing this staple of pirate attire. In fact, later in the same leaflet, where he discussed the lack of eye patches to this point in the series, Oda also declares, "But it's not like I dislike eye patches. So in the final scenes of One Piece, there is one pirate who appears with an eye patch. I'm itching to draw this character."
He has so many different characters and scenes he's talked about being excited to draw. And so for Oda to be reserving this honor for one particular character in the very back end of this story, you would have to think that this character holds some level of significance in terms of not just the One Piece story as a whole, but what they might play in those final scenes. So, who exactly could this character be that Oda's been so keen to draw and put in the story?
And it's kind of hard to be certain about identifying these kinds of characters, considering the amount of lurking legends, hidden figures, and all of the mysteries that Oda has sprinkled into the story since that announcement 17 years ago. But we do have some information to go off of to help kind of narrow down the options, thanks to some of the specific wording that Oda used when claiming he would draw a character wearing an eye patch.
Exactly, and as a reminder, Oda stated that this character would appear in the final scenes of the story, so whoever this character may be is either a character we've met so far who will play a hand in the very conclusion of the story, or someone who we have yet to encounter in their true form just yet. So with that restriction in mind, let's review some common speculations that have sprung up around the fanbase over these years of discussion and decades of discourse regarding who this potential Eyepatch wearer might be, as well as some of our leading candidates as to who we think fits the bill.
And the first one that people have been suggesting for a long time would be Odin. Not Kozuki Odin, but rather Odin Borson, father of Thor and Loki from Norse mythology. We know for certain that the Prince of Elbaf, who had his hand in marriage rejected by Lola, is named Loki. So it isn't illogical to think the King of Elbaf would draw inspiration from Odin's own design, which is renowned for having an eye patch itself. In Norse mythology, Odin traded that eye for divine wisdom, resulting in his aesthetic donning the eye patch.
And this would just kind of seem like a slam dunk of things coming together, but if Oda is true to his word, which he typically is, but sometimes he makes a lot of promises he can't keep, but saying he is in this case, if this character is meant to appear in the final scenes of the story, then our direction heading to Elbaf, seemingly right after Egghead, would probably eliminate him as a possible character from contention, though. We'll at least know for certain here very soon, but as for another popular idea amidst the community, we also have something a bit more recent.
And that would be the man marked by flames. And while another mysterious character, this guy could really be a key, as Kid put it, to the war for the One Piece, which would definitely suggest his importance to the later stages of the story, as he would be basically gatekeeping the final treasure.
This character, also named Hinokizu, is also described by Luffy to captain a sort of all-black vessel, and they, according to legend, have the ability to create vortexes in the ocean around them so that nobody's been able to capture or catch them, which also does kind of disqualify a lot of other people's theories they had as to who it might have been, when some people thought it could have been Aokiji, or some people, like myself, for some reason also just assumed it might have been Jaguar D. Saul, but I can't imagine Saul leaving Elbaf after being targeted by the world government, so this might be a character that we have yet to truly meet or truly see who they are. And if they do hold that final step towards the One Piece, then they would definitely be an integral part of the very final part of the story as well. And they might just be the one that's wearing the eye patch when we finally actually see what they look like for the first time. But just to keep our options open and keep exploring some other ideas, let's take a look at another lurking legend next.
Yeah, and that would be Rox D. Xebec, another character, like you said, that we've yet to truly encounter with their entire appearance visible to us. So it is possible that Rox could be the one to possess the eye patch look. However, I believe most of the speculation for this idea centers around Rox's Jolly Roger, where one of the skull eye sockets has some markings next to it that could be loosely interpreted as an eye patch strap.
Yeah, and however we see it, Rox doesn't necessarily have a clear path back into the story if they really were defeated at God Valley. So unless Rox returns to the story either alive again or pulling like an ultimate reveal like they were Emu the whole time, there doesn't seem to be enough evidence here to claim that they will be in the end of the story or that they would be the person important enough to don the eye patch. So let's take a look at who we believe would be our leading candidates to be the inheritor of the eye patch look, as we'll put it. And we can start with somebody we've seen very recently in the story, being Joy Boy.
Yeah, and his appearance in chapter 1122 is actually what prompted this discussion to begin, thanks to his very unique appearance that we see from only his silhouette.
In this chapter, we do see, in that brief flashback with Emmett, that when they're talking to one another and Joy Boy gets excited on the very final page, we can make out what looks like not only a peg leg, but also what looks like some sort of prosthetic arm to go along with it, giving him already a number of very common pirate trope aesthetics. So why not make him also the one to be the eye patch wearer for the first time? It's pretty much almost certain he's going to appear at the end of the story. So when the crewmates finally arrive to Laugh-Tale and inherit his treasure, there's a very good chance he'll be in the final scenes of the story.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the moment that he's looked forward to drawing for so long, just because he needs to keep silhouetting this character that he's been building the whole destination towards.
I definitely agree. It would make sense that we would see, similar to how Roger was speaking to Joy Boy when he reached Laugh-Tale, that Luffy himself would also have a sort of face-to-face conversation with him in some degree, even if it's just more of like a hypothetical, that he would finally get a face to the name.
Perhaps we'll even have like a voice of all things conversation with Joy Boy through something on Laugh-Tale.
That would be cool.
But speaking of our MC, he is the final candidate that we wanted to propose for who we think could potentially wear the eye patch in this story. Because along with discussing the policy of not wanting to draw anyone in the story with an eye patch, in the same leaflet, Oda also commented, if there's an image in everyone's head about what a pirate is, then I thought I would write/draw about the process of the boy getting there. And the boy in this case being Luffy, the normal looking boy that Oda felt he really could bring to life now that he wasn't under the restriction of drawing under a certain stereotype for this character group.
And I mean, this is, after all, Luffy's journey to become the Pirate King and find the One Piece. So it would be absurd to think Luffy wouldn't be present in the final scenes of the story that's followed him from the beginning. And more than anything, seeing Luffy lose something like an eye to match his mentor Shanks and become the ultimate pirate, worthy of adorning that legendary eye patch, would feel just right for him to be the one that Oda's been waiting to draw in this style all this time.
I also think there is a cover where Luffy has one of his eyes blinking down. So maybe that's just his sort of homage in the way to say in the future he'll be the one to wear it. But with all of these options in mind, who do you guys think is the long-awaited eye patch adorned character that we will see later in the story? If they do truly appear in the final scenes of the story, we'll obviously have to wait a couple more years to get any kind of confirmation on that. But it's interesting to see how the discussion has evolved over what's literally been decades now, and we've met so many new characters coming in and out of the story.
So, thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave your answers to those questions down in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed the discussion. Subscribe to join our pirate fleet. And as always, don't forget, be crew.